That will be.
Yeah. Shannon.
This
Hat on.
one of them said, hey. He's a good basketball player. That was driving. Terrace, like, let's see this. They are aggressive. Good athletes.
I always get fooled. Look at this.
Yeah, and then turn it around.
Yeah. Right about it too. I get it.
My spirit. I can't remember.
I need to be going to executive session for solicitation.
We got Pat. Turn the camera off. Sticker. There you go.
Oh, very nice. I want to see waves. I'm trying. You'll see the whole meeting. I'll be like,
Going in there. Off the grid.
Okay, Chris.
You gonna catch up? Okay, you ready? Okay.
you can turn the camera.
I like seeing his face. Leave him on there. All right, here we go. Okay, I'd like to call to order the regular school board meeting for Garden Valley School District number 71. It's Wednesday, December 20th, 2023. And it is 6:10 p.m. Sorry for the late start. Can I get a roll call, please?
Trace Goff.
Clay Tucker.
Morris Morgan.
George Simpson.
Kylie Peters. And could you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, item number 4, approve and adopt agenda. Do I have a motion to approve and adopt agenda?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve and adopt the agenda as listed.
Madam Chair, I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, item number 5, consent agenda. Do I have a motion to A, approve of minutes for regular board meeting November 15th, 2023, special board meeting November 30th, 2023, special board meeting December 4th, 2023, B, the treasurer's report, and C, the payment of bills and journal entries.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda as written.
Aye.
Aye. Item number 6, delegation and reports. A, Superintendent Pat Goff, who is joining us via Zoom tonight.
Madam Chair, I don't have anything particular, just, just recently we had a school board meeting. All right, meeting tonight, we had a plan for a while. There's been some things that are coming up that you've been apprised of, that people are on trying to get things taken care of. I'll give you a full report in January about what's going on and updated with our money situation and where we're at with the budget.
Okay, great, thanks, and thanks for joining us via Zoom. Item B, principal report, Dr. Lynch and Michelle Ogle.
I'd like to, for me, I'm going to cover the Gifted and Talented 3-year plan, and I believe all of you have a packet here. I'd like to direct you first to the very, very last page. I apologize for the orderness of this packet, but it is the very last page, and it is Garden Valley School District Policy 2430. And I'd just like to read the definition of the policy. This is something that needed to be submitted in our 3-year plan. The term gifted and talented means students who are identified as possessing demonstrated or potential abilities that give evidence of high-performing capabilities in intellectual, creative, specific academic or leadership areas, or the ability in the performing or visual arts who require children of outstanding abilities who are capable of demonstrating high performance and require such services or activities not ordinarily provided by the school district. So this is our abilities to differentiate and provide the necessary services to our students who qualify for gifted and talented. This is submitted to the State Department of Ed, and this is also posted on our website if you would like to take a look at this. If there are any questions, please be sure to reach out to VP Olga and I, and we'll address any parts of the gifted and talented program. If I can now direct you to page 4 of the packet, and it has it at the bottom right. It says page 4 SDE. Once again, this is as part of Idaho code that we have to provide gifted and talented programs for every single school district that is public schools. I'd like to just recognize the 5 people who had influence and input into this document. Superintendent Goff, C is a district coordinator, and then Janice Castillo is also the district coordinator. So I'd like to just recognize the people who put in their work for this document here. If I can have you turn to page 6, please, of the same packet. This is the philosophy statement. Garden Valley School District acknowledges there are students in our district who are gifted and talented in the areas of intellectual abilities, academic proficiency, creativity, and leadership. These students have the right to be educated at the appropriate areas that are identified. And once again, these are the 5 areas: specific academic, intellectual, creativity, leadership, and then visual arts. Those are the 5 areas for gifted and talented. Any questions up to this point? There, if I can direct you to page 8 now, there is a 3-step referral. There's a 3-step process for gifted and talented. The first one is the referral process, and in that sense, anybody can refer themselves, including the students themselves. If they believe that they are gifted and talented, there is attached appendices that includes the referral process, and they just have to fill that out, submit that to us, and we'll start the screening process and the actual assessment process. If they qualify based upon the benchmarks that we've outlined, then they will get the specialized gifted and talented programs. And what this really means is that we will make sure that based upon their abilities, that we are differentiating in the classrooms at this point in time so that they are receiving what they need. We, because of our school size and the resources, we do not have the abilities to actually pull out students and then give them those specific instructions. I can say that Boise School District does a couple of things exceptionally well. I know that their math is phenomenal, and when students test at a really high level, they will actually transport kids through their own own transportation system to one campus or one building that is appropriate for their age levels, and that's how they do it. We do not have that here just based upon our structure, but we are training the staff to make sure that they receive the differentiated instruction so they can tier higher or go higher. And that is our process right now, that we are working on, and we are implementing those as we speak. Yes.
What is the screening process?
The screening process is, there's actually, right now, it's, let me see here. It is, I'm just trying to get to the proper appendices. It is,
After the referral form.
I'm sorry?
Yeah. So, identification matrix?
Yes.
Pages is it?
Correct. And then I'm just, excuse me for a quick second. And actually, the better one to go to is actually page 9 of the SDE. So you can see that. And with some of these tests, if there's an ISAT test that's attached, we can actually pull that data pretty easily through our portal that we have through the State Department of Ed. If there is a specialized test like the WISC-4, we actually have to have a school psychologist who we contract out in order to give assessments. And then when we get the results, then we can actually determine where they're at. But the number one identification process is the referral process, and there's many mechanisms to do this. Once again, students, if they believe that they qualify, they can actually fill out that first appendices, this referral form, and they can initiate this. Any other questions I can answer about GTs?
So Dr. Lynch,
Yes.
is the purpose of this here to bring us in compliance with the state?
It is in compliance, but at the same time, we've identified that every single student has a right to an education. And once again, when students perform at a very high level, we have that obligation and duty to provide those as well. So even if this was not a state mandate, I think that we should be doing that nonetheless.
But
Same
I've
thing with
heard
the
about
lower
this.
tier as well.
For years, this Gifted and Talented program.
Mhm.
I've heard about this in our school for years.
Correct.
Are you saying that we have not been implementing this? Or
We were trying to look through the information. We couldn't say anything officially.
Right.
So,
Okay, so you're making it more efficient.
correct. And then this is a 3-year plan as well, so we will not have to renew to the state for the next 3 years. Obviously, if we make edits, we can, and we can supply that information, but if there's items in here that if we need to do better or to edit it, we have that discretion, and we'll send the state the amended version of it, and then we'll also put it on our website as well, that those changes need to be made.
Okay.
I think if I could just add one thing, like one of the things we've done in the past, I think because we're such a small school with limited teacher capacity, one of the things that we've done for our students in the past that have been identified as gifted and talented is we've been bumping them up. We put them into more advanced, that's where you have those kids that as an
Right.
8th grader are taking high school classes, as a high schooler are taking dual credit classes.
Yeah.
So that's one of the ways that we've solved that problem in the past for our school demographic. I think what we're doing now is just trying to fill out that picture so that it's a little more comprehensive.
Have you guys looked into also incorporating like twice exceptional kids?
Of
So
course.
kids with learning disabilities that are gifted and talented.
Correct.
Is that something we're currently doing?
We are it is actually mentioned in this,
Okay.
and that is part of the plan as well.
Okay, great. Because I know those students can get kind of lost.
Oh,
Yeah,
without
that
question.
School psychologist is the same exact person who would be offering those services at the other end. So when we're talking about exceptional students, we're talking about both ends.
Good.
And so it's really, those services are really going to be very interconnected, not in the way that they're necessarily implemented, but in that the process in terms of that screening is going to be very similar.
Great.
So, Dr. Lynch, just correct me if I'm wrong. 2 things jump out at me. 1, this policy is required by law.
Correct.
2, it falls under the category of unfunded mandates, because we are not given money to do this, but we are required to do this. And it all goes back to 2008, when the legislature changed the way schools are funded. And the way schools are funded are no longer equitable, and that is why we need to run levies. 95% of schools are funded through the local levy, and we then need to raise money for these programs because the state does not give the equal amount of funds to each school, and it disadvantages small rural schools.
I would agree with that. Right now, the state and its current new leadership, they have really opened up the State Department of Ed's personnel, the 200 some that are in the State Department of Ed, and they have been extremely accessible. I know that the coordinator who oversees GT, she is actually, let me even back up a little bit. Many of the coordinators, including Superintendent Critchfield, is very conscientious of rural schools and the limited resources and the funding. And we are on Zooms, meetings, in-person conferences so that they are giving us the resources, and they are providing that. The concerns that we have is the fact, once again, is capacity here, because we are stretched in so many directions that how do we actually make this feasible and doable without burning people out? So we are receiving that information, and we are trying to inject this with fidelity and with caution, because oftentimes too fast, too much, we're not able to actually have a good framework to make this happen. But that for sure is one of them. If I can actually share something out as well, we received, we have an internal team, and actually the State Department of Ed sent out a grant opportunity, and it's actually for a school nurse. And it's going to about 6 to 15 school nurses, once again designated specifically for rural schools. And it is 1.0 FTE, which is the equivalent of $40,000, or 0.5 FTE, which is $20,000. And this is in addition to what we would receive as an FTE for a people service like nurse. So we can actually double their salary to really drive or try to motivate nurses to come in. So when I just mentioned that the State Department of Ed is really proactive, I think they're really headed in the right direction in terms of providing resources and services and the supports for rural schools. And this is another example for me where they are really trying to help out rural schools.
How long is that grant money available?
It's for 3 years. It
So
will
it'd be
start in the
3
next
years.
school year cycle. And then all these grants have an amazing question, which is really applicable for every single one of us, and that is sustainability. What is the sustainability when it runs out?
Right.
And this is where Gabe Gillette was actually part of this team. And because he oversees finances, I asked him, would you mind taking this section on and really help us out with the sustainability plan so that we can continue this more so to keep a person around beyond the 3 years. And obviously in our many conversations, we identify the importance of certain roles, especially on a school nurse. Now, another question, I'm sorry if I'm deviating a little bit, but another question that was asked of us is that, are you willing to partner with the neighboring school district to pool resources? Of course. And we talked to Horseshoe Bend School District and to Basin School District. And oftentimes we might need to utilize that so that we have at least one person in our county anyhow. So we're more than willing to do that so we get the services that we need.
But that just highlights one of the problems we run into is we get a grant and we employ somebody based on that grant. The grant runs out and now we have to find the money, and it has to come from general funds.
Well, this is where the sustainability parts is really important because we're
Right.
trying to avoid the general funds as much as possible.
But I think the person that we employ under the grant funding needs to understand that.
Without question. Yeah.
And Gabe's looking into that. So as we move closer to making a decision in this area, we'll have that information from him, correct?
Correct.
In that particular instance, it's not going to help with the gifted and talented program, but it's just another.
And for me, I was just,
Status.
correct, I was just providing the framework because the State Department of Ed is very aware of the rural schools and the lack of resources, and I was just providing that as an example of the efforts that they are making to ensure that we get equity as part of a rural school. Sorry, your question?
I was just wondering how many students are currently in the program?
And the GT, I think if we had the basic initial ones, I think it's in the teens, like mid-teens as of right now.
So we have kind of a range of kids that we believe fit under that category, and then we have 2 in the entire building have been officially identified through testing. So we have a list that's bigger than those 2, but those 2 have been designated through testing.
Anything else?
Oh, yeah, just real quick on that page 9, sorry. The ISAT 91 percentile, whatever, but then the leadership
cognitive abilities test, how do you define what?
Well, leadership on this specific one, because this is a quantitative, this is one's been done by this school psychologist. There were other areas that if they refer, we have opportunities such as student council is one. So there's, the primary one for leadership is the cognitive abilities, and this is the list one, and this is where it is assessed by, assessed by the school psychologist. I can give you a copy of that if you would like. You'll have to see that.
I was just curious.
And that's a little bit outside my scope. I know the basics, but I don't know the entirety of that.
Okay, so if you guys want to pull out your sheet on behaviors and incidents, so I've tried to just fill out the knowledge of like this information that we're tracking each time I give a report, but when we're tracking incidents, we're tracking them under 5 categories, and you can see that on the right-hand column in the purple, like second from the top on the right. It says incidents by area. So we have 5 categories that we're tracking. One is academic, behavior, cell phone, dress code, and technology. So these are our 5 categories, and you can see that by far the thing that we track the most is those behaviors. The last time I reported, we talked about those tiers of behavior. So level 1 would be something that's impacting that student's ability to learn in the classroom, and that is the majority of our incidents. You can see that on the left-hand side in the second row. So the majority of those are level 1. It might be just something really small, but it's impacting that student's ability to learn in the classroom. A level 2 is going to take it up a notch, and that's where that student is starting to impact the ability for others to learn. And then from there, we can get into more serious levels of behavior. When I reported last month, one of the things I said was that we see that there are more incidents on Thursdays. We know that. And we know that kids are tired by Thursdays. Their engagement is decreasing. So one of the things that I'm continually stewing over is, what do we do with that information? Yeah, we have some data, but then what do we do with that information? So I've been doing some research and talking with Dr. Lynch. One of the things that we're looking at is just different ways that we can be approaching discipline in a way that is cohesive, it makes sense, it's aligned with how it's meeting the needs of that specific kid instead of just being punitive. There's a ton of research out there right now on things like restorative justice and ways of connecting the issue that student's having with learning how to remedy that issue. So what we're doing more and more when students are coming into the office or we're talking with students is, okay, we've identified this situation that's happening. How can we make it better? So we're incorporating this character element now where we're asking the student to reflect on, what do you need to do to make this situation better? And what can you do differently next time? So that's where we have the conversation about, what tools does that student need? What need do you have that's initiating that issue behavior that's hurting your ability to learn in the classroom and others? So instead of just being punitive all the time, if they're coming in or they're having an issue in the classroom, we want to be addressing that second component of how do we minimize the behavior? I think we're on the right track, and I think the data is showing us that. I just think we need to keep building on that. So one of the things that I'm talking with Dr. Lynch about right now is the state. We were just talking about the state and the resources they're offering. They're offering a conference in the spring that's on classroom management, and this is absolutely tied. I mean, these things are not separate at all. So I would like to take a representative teacher from each school to that conference and just build our own tool belts on what it means to be better at classroom management, and then have those teachers be able to be a leader in their school and relay that information and the tools they're learning. The second thing I want to do is for myself, I want to go to a conference and learn more about restorative justice. So there are lots of great things happening in the country right now in education where people are trying to do creative things to deal with behaviors in schools and help students work to a better place. Not just like we're going to implement some consequence, but how can we get you to a better place so that you're more successful? Because these things are absolutely tied with things like academic achievement and their attendance in school. I mean, these are all big topics, and we talk about them like silos in schools, but they're not. They're absolutely interconnected. So we have a plan, we're sorting it out, and I think we're on the right track based on the data that's here. We're still on track. Like last year, we were at over 6 incidents a day on average, and now we're still hovering around that 3. So I think we're on the right track. We want to keep building and moving in the right direction.
You said something that kind of piqued my interest here because these students are also impacting other students in the classroom, right? And impacting their teachers as well. So if I was a teacher and I had sent a student to you, say with a couple level 3s in a week, would I expect to see that student back in my classroom that day? Or is this student not coming back to that classroom?
So have you seen our consequence chart of the levels of behavior? And I can share that document with any of you guys if you want. It's a guiding document that gives us a framework for like what happens at these different tiers. Well, at a level 3, we can expect that we're going to be implementing some suspension and some community service.
Okay.
So I would say, depending on what that was, and if it's repeated, there's a good chance that student is not going to be going back in the classroom that week.
And it's paramount that the teachers, you guys aren't pulling this out of the air. The teachers have to report the student has to report to you, correct? Then you analyze the situation, go through your process, right? Okay. I'm just trying to flesh out a little bit more verbally how that happens.
Yeah,
So that makes sense to me.
yeah.
So a teacher should be looking at you guys for support on this.
Yeah, I mean,
Administrative, I'm saying.
yes, at the levels of behavior, we're asking teachers to handle a level 1 and a level 2. So, and there's examples of what those situations might be in a classroom. And so we're asking them to implement their own consequences and to handle that situation, communicate with parents, communicate with the student on those 2 levels. At level 3, that's when administration gets involved.
Okay, and if it's multiple level 2s,
Then it would probably bump to a level
You're
3
gonna
because
have
now
to
we're having
go.
a chronic bigger issue.
Okay.
Yeah. And typically it will manifest itself into something else if we're on that trajectory.
thank you.
An observation, and we might just have to look at the data, but it seems as if the number of incidences are being reduced from the lower grades first. Because for me, 6th and 7th grade, I was going to say middle school, but if I recall correctly, when we first started to do this, middle school was the highest. The most incidences that come from our middle school.
7 and
Yeah.
8 grades.
Third
But
grade.
now it seems as, I mean, except maybe for 8th grade, I know there is a reduction in everything. But
Yeah.
it seems to me as if the reduction is starting in the lower grades, because if you think about it, for the 2 years we've implemented this now, it seems as if the effectiveness would start at the lower grades and then just continue as kids graduate. That's just an observation.
Yeah, I mean, this is the challenge of school, right? Is like you have all this information and then you got to tease out like a scientist, which thing is impacting what? And often you have several factors that might be impacting it. So you very well may be right. It could also be, what's happening, is it retention of teachers on the lower levels? I mean, is it size of classroom? Is it, could be so many factors impacting these things that are happening.
No, because I can remember when we spoke to Dr. Lynch, who was saying that discipline or behavior in the classroom was a major problem.
Yeah,
And then, we started to look at data like this.
yeah,
And there were crackdowns, and I can remember a parent speaking to me and, the complaint from the student was, we can get away with nothing. Because telling me that in the past they could get away with it, now something is being done about it, because our thing was, look at these types of behavior affect the education of all the students. And so let's do something about it. So it seems as if the behavior had been present for many years before this was implemented, then it would have, then the latter grades would have had more leeway into doing it whatever they wanted to, whereas the lower grades yeah, you've only been doing this for 2 years, and now 2 years we've cracked down on you. So that's what I think. It's
Yeah,
neither here nor there.
it very well could be. And I mean, it's not sexy, but like consistency is huge. I mean, yes. So like those lower grades, if that's what all they know is like we're consistent in how we're expecting students to behave properly in a classroom, and that's all they know versus the student who's like, wait a minute, you just threw a kink in the whole thing. Yeah, I mean, that could definitely make an impact.
Going back to the conference that we have available to do classroom management, is there like a cost per teacher, or like, do we have the ability to take a lot of people? What does that look like?
Okay, it's $50 per person, and they do actually offer several days. So the first one would be just basic classroom management. The second one would be like trauma-informed decision-making in the classroom. So you can tack on. I think for me, our biggest issue is the subs, being able to cover our classrooms to get people there.
So, yeah.
Like, I need to process this.
Okay, yeah.
Because I can see this as being something hugely impactful for years to come, right? Because we do have teachers on emergency provisions, right? That this could be really a huge resource for them.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you guys are all bringing up all the complexities of these things. They're all interconnected with
They
other
are,
things.
very much.
It's all very much interconnected.
Yeah.
So, yeah, which thing do you want to tackle? Which slice do you want to address? You know,
And
to
is
get
it
to
during
better
the
place?
week that
It
teachers?
is.
It
Yeah.
is. It's not on Friday.
It's not in the Bahamas, right?
It's,
in Boise,
I
probably.
wish.
Is it in Boise?
That'd
Say
be
that
nice.
again.
Is
Is it in Boise?
Yes.
So the cost then would be the classroom cost, the classes cost, cost of the class, a sub, transport to Boise and a meal.
If you want to pay for our lunch.
We can have Debbie pack lunch.
So, and Carl, just as part of the discussion.
Yeah.
If that's the cost, what's the benefit? And I think the benefit over years far outweighs, 1, 2, teachers are being equipped. And I think if the board goes this route and makes this available to the teachers, it communicates something, not only to the teachers, but to the community.
Right.
Because it would be an investment into the long-term strategy and effectiveness of the school as a whole.
And I like the both. I like the two-tier classroom management and the trauma informed, right? Because we're seeing more of that. And we need to equip our teachers with the skills and tools to be able to manage that appropriately.
Yeah, I mean, we can have a lot of frustrations about things that aren't going well, but at the end of the day, we can only do what we know how to do.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so you can't necessarily get mad at people if they're like, these are all the tools I have.
This is all
This
that's
is
in
all
my
that's in my
toolbox."
tool belt, right?
Yeah.
So we want to give them as many tools as possible to be as successful as possible.
I think we
Make a
should.
note.
Yeah, I
We'll
think
get
we
it on
should
the
talk
agenda.
about this more. When is it?
In February.
In February, so we can get it on next month's agenda.
But then just do the homework beforehand, ask Gabe to look into it and speak to Pat.
I will. Okay. It's important.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks
Thank
for
you
bringing
guys.
that
Thanks for your time.
up. Okay. Okay, item number 7, community forum on agenda items. The public comment will be taken from the public on matters scheduled on the agenda. The chairman may interrupt or terminate an individual's statement when it is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, repetitive, or irrelevant. A person wishing to speak on an agenda item should fill out a request to appear before the board form 4105F and submit it to the board clerk before the meeting begins. These forms will be available at the sign-in desk or can be found on gbsd.net policy 4105F. And we do have one, Miss Elizabeth Olson.
Well, this is probably irrelevant to the agenda, but I just wanted to thank everybody here at the table in front and all people in the audience for all the work they do is behind the scenes and hard. And so I just want to thank you all. Wish you happy holidays.
Thank you.
Completely non-abusive.
That was not offensive or abusive. I'll take it. Thank you. Okay. So is that what I need to do?
If you wanted to come on, yes.
Okay, let's just do it all in a
So
bit.
you wanted to ask, suggest it, and see if someone can make a motion that's A. You can do that.
Okay.
Gotcha.
You got it? Okay, George just got it. Okay. Item number 8, executive session 71-206, subsection 1, an executive session at which members of the public are excluded may be held, but only for the purposes and only in the manner set forth in this section. The motion to go into executive session shall identify the specific subsections of this section that authorize the executive session. There shall be a roll call vote on the motion, and the vote shall be recorded in the minutes. An executive session shall be authorized by a 2/3 vote of the governing body. An executive session may be held 74-206, subsection 1A, to consider hiring a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent wherein the respective qualities of individuals are to be evaluated in order to fill a particular vacancy or need. This paragraph does not apply to filling a vacancy in an elective office or deliberations about staffing needs in general. And that falls under hiring. B, to consider the evaluation, dismissal, disciplining of, or to hear complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent or public school student. F, to communicate with legal counsel for the public agency to discuss the legal ramifications of and legal options for pending litigation or controversies not yet being litigated but imminently likely to be litigated. The mere presence of legal counsel at an executive session does not satisfy this requirement.
Madam Chair, I move that we go into executive session, 74-206, subsection 1, A, B, and F.
Second.
Can I have a roll call vote?
Trace Goff, aye.
Clay Tucker, aye.
Morris Morgan, aye.
George Simpson, aye.
Kylie Peters, aye. Okay, we're going to go into executive session and just get everything done at once, and then we'll come back out and do the interviews and the rest of the agenda. Okay?
say to the board, in the past I've said I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and you know that this is another thing. I was like, I'm going to do more than this.
That's gonna be good.
And so,
Okay, sorry I didn't catch that either.
Oh, no, I just feel bad for saying that. I just, it's a mistake. You know, you just have to take it off.
Hey, don't worry about it.
Kenny, are you taking notes? So there's certain things I'm leaving for you to do,
I'm
but
like, why is Mark so happy?
Is there something you don't know? Oh, yeah.
only you knew what.
Yeah.
In about 3 months, you'll know why.
So you take that off. Here. He still fades in his program.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, no, I've got it. Did
Will you let me in?
Yeah, just.
The trays and,
That's so false. I did that.
What do you say?
You put it in a napkin.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
You're very. It's so.
okay.
No, you're wrong.
Ready? Ready?
Ready?
Okay. All right, item number 9, action items, new business. Item number 1, interview applicant for zone 2.
We got 2, right?
Eric Ballou would be our applicant for zone 2, and he was the only applicant.
Okay.
So at this time, what we would do is we're just going to do a couple interview questions.
So, and if I may, point of order on this, and Chris can correct me if I'm wrong, with only one applicant, you don't have to go through this if you don't want to. The question thing? Am I correct, Chris?
Correct. I guess it's 2 parts. The board certainly has the prerogative to ask questions because just because you have an applicant, you're not obligated to appoint. But if the board doesn't insist on asking questions, the applicant doesn't insist on providing information, you can just move forward and make an appointment if you want to.
So that's
Which is
interesting.
very common if you like know the person and that sort of thing. I mean, you may not feel, you might feel like I already know.
So I asked this question for a reason, because we were told the last time we did this with one applicant, we wanted to wait to see if we got more applicants. We were told that you were not allowed to do that. You had to appoint a person if they applied and they were in district.
I think our policies might be where that's coming from.
I don't think it was policy.
I don't think so.
So,
That came from
Some trainings.
somewhere on high. But so
I don't
you're
think
our
so.
attorney, so you're saying that we don't have to appoint with only one applicant, but we can.
Yeah, I mean, there's some guidelines in the state code about timeframes.
Okay.
You can reach out and get applications and you've got 90 days, but you may have somebody that applies that's not qualified, somebody that may be, and this is, just speaking generally, and not everybody that's actually applied. You may have people that have, a criminal background, right? And you may decide, oh, they're not appropriate to serve on the school board. Because you can do some background checks, and something, even just on your own, you can see where, that sort of thing. And so there's things like that where you would say, well, they might be in district, but they really aren't appropriate to be around kids all the time. And so there are let's say kind of extreme examples. I don't think it's not it should be something like, well, politically, I don't like your position, so I'm not going to appoint you. That's not appropriate, but there are things that may be relevant to the school board and that you're functioning. That you'd say, well, we just, we don't feel like a person's a good fit. That's why you ask the questions and those sorts of things. But generally, if somebody has applied, I mean, the reality is to be qualified to be on a board, you just have to live in the district, right? And for, I think, 30 days. That's about it.
That's what I was told.
It's a very low bar, Yeah. So if you don't get picked, sorry. So that's, anyway, so you've had, I'm suggesting that there shouldn't be for lack of a better term, kind of a boys club or whatever, right? I mean, you want to make sure that people that are interested in serving have an opportunity to serve. But if there's things that you're really interested in, you're different as a school district than say like a public charter school that's got a charter and a mission and vision that's kind of sacred, so they can be more picky than an elected.
Well, thank you, Chris. My apologies, Madam Chair.
That's okay.
So Eric, sorry about that. I just wanted to clarify that because there's been conflicting information given to me as a board member, so I just wanted to ask Chris and Susie. Let's get on with the questions. So,
Clarity.
yes,
Oh, no, but there's only one, so
right.
doesn't matter.
Okay, I'll ask a question. Why would you like to become a board member at GBSD?
Well, my kids are all in this school. We've had such a wonderful experience at this school and in this community, and I want to contribute. And I feel like I'm good at dialogue and communication. I work with patients every day as a dentist, but the lucky part about that is I get to visit with people in the community every day, 2 days a week, and here, and I enjoy that very much. And so I want to be able to help and contribute and be part of it.
Thank you.
I appreciate all of you volunteering.
Thank you.
So, and that kind of leads into my question. So, do you feel you have sufficient time to devote to the board duties with your current position and everything? And I wasn't told this, so I'm going to give you some inside information.
That might be good.
She scared me. I asked Kylie before, so much time do you put in?
It's a little bit. I'm not going to
Way
lie.
more than I expected.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's a little daunting. Everyone feels busy.
Yeah.
I always felt like, but if you want to get something done, ask somebody that's busy.
Yeah.
My family's my priority, but they're involved in this. And so, yeah, I think I'll be able to make the time for the meetings, for the other items that are required. If it's really 4 or 5 hours a week, that's more than I want to give. But if that's what it requires, I'll carve it out.
And some months are better than others, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate that answer. Thank you. Sorry, Boris. I take your question.
It's the same discussion,
Okay.
but maybe if you want to add to it, and I'll just wrap them up into one. How much time do you think being an effective board member requires? And the second part to that is, how much time do you have to give?
Well, how much do I think it requires?
Yes.
I have no idea, so that's why I asked them.
Okay.
The key to that
I had
question
hoped-
was being effective.
I had hoped an hour or two a week, right? That's what I had hoped.
Yeah.
But if it requires more than that, then I understand. And there's certain issues that come up more often, or when they come up that require more time. How much time do I have to give? That's a tricky question. We all have the same amount of time, right? In our lives, I work usually 4 days a week. I work 2 days in Boise, and I work 2 days here. I try to drop my kids off and try to pick them up. And so I finish most days at 4. My kids are at the ages now where they're starting to get more involved in sports. I didn't miss the ball game today because it was early enough. But my oldest is playing sports. My next son is 13. He'll be playing middle school basketball. I'd like to be able to see those games and do those kind of things. I hope all of you like to do that. And so I hope there's time for that kind of thing.
Yeah, but sometimes we have, like tonight, we have a board meeting while there's board
I'm
game
here.
going on.
Right? And so you sense the priority in that and just show up.
I don't even think I need to ask you a question.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, item number 2, do I have a motion to appoint a trustee for Zone 2, Eric Blue?
Madam Chair, I move that we appoint Eric Ballou trustee for Zone 2.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Welcome aboard.
Yes.
So, Madam Chair, just for clarity, at the next regular board meeting, he'll get sworn in and sign all the documents and then be enacted.
January
17th.
Chris has it all mapped out for us. I was on it already this week.
Yeah, so you take, according to statute, you officially take office on January 1st. And then you're sworn in, and just like the people that were elected, they'll take office on the 1st, and then you're actually sworn in at the next regular meeting. So that's, again, typically the, what Wednesday we? Third Wednesday?
The
17th.
And so you'd be sworn in today. My opinion is that since the code says you assume the office, I think once that's done, you'll start receiving emails and, and you can kind of function as a board member, even though you haven't technically taken the oath. The way the legislature writes statutes sometimes is a little weird. And you would think you would take the oath and then assume office, but they do it differently, so.
And I think, Chris, he has to be sworn in before he can do a vote. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, typically that's
Yes.
true, but you'll, like I said, you'll still be involved in receiving information, just like you're a regular member of the board, so.
We can attend
Part of the
executive
swearing
session.
in.
We can attend meetings if there is a meeting called before the regular school board meeting, but you cannot vote.
Right. So the first
Like
regular
if there
next
was a
meeting
meeting
we have.
between now and the 1st.
Correct, like if we had a special
No,
school
no.
board meeting.
Or if
No.
you're saying between the 1st and
The first
And
and the
17th. Yeah, you just
So I
like,
could go to the meeting, just not.
correct.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, item number 3, interview applicant for Zone 4. I need to recuse myself.
Not, just sit down.
Huh? I'm gonna go.
Okay. So I'm going to assume the chairman position here. And so I think let's interview whoever I have first on my list here.
How do you want them to sit? Do you want me to put 2 seats up front?
This is right.
I have Sawyer up first here, so. So let me ask the rest of you this. Hey, do you guys want to interview boom, 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 or one?
One.
Okay, so you want to ask the same question?
That's fine with me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that kind of gives the other one an advantage.
no, I
No,
don't,
no,
I got,
one,
I have
one,
different
one.
questions
You
that
know,
I
you go
would
back
like
and
to
forth.
ask,
Okay.
yeah.
We go back and forth.
Let's just
Okay.
do one at a time.
All right. Okay, so would anybody like to start down here with questions?
Who's up first?
Whoever you ask.
Ah, okay.
Mr. Davis, again, a question you've heard before. How much time do you think it takes to be an effective board member? And how much time do you have available to give? As it was pointed out to this is a volunteer position.
I think it takes as much time as you can give. And I mean, I have plenty of time to give. So I would say, I don't know, I've never been a part of the school board, but
Oh, I thought you'd have asked your brother.
I saw that, and I saw that it took a lot of time, and I guess I'm prepared to put in at least as much as I saw him put in, and he talked about, so.
Kylie, how much time do you think it takes to get, to make a,
I haven't
to be an
accurate.
effective school board member? And how much time do you have available? I think it's important for people in the public to know.
Yeah, I would say when we're in the thick of it and we're having issues to deal with, I can put in 10 to 15, 20 hours a week. Just depends. Like on Wednesday, I was here, I showed up at 10:30 and I left at 3:45. So I signed Christmas cards, delivered them to teachers, had meeting after meeting after meeting with Pat. And it's so important, I feel, to have like that presence and that the teachers feel supported and Pat feels supported. So it takes a lot of time. I mean, sometimes I'll be on the phone with Chris and it's a full hour conversation and it's one question. Or at nighttime when Pat's off work and I'm done working, we're communicating sometimes for an hour. So to do the job and to do the job well and with integrity and to know you're doing it right, it takes some time. And I have it to do right now. So.
Because I did not know this when I came on the board.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're reading policies, you're doing all these things. Yeah, and I don't think people in the public know.
Yeah.
Any other?
Mr. Davis, so to be in this zone, you have to live in this zone. And I understand just because I live in your neighborhood where you bought your house. So
I'm not in that neighborhood. I own that house.
I know, but I was wondering in the future, this happened to another board member of ours. So
Correct.
in the near future, are you planning to move into that house? Okay.
No, I'm flipping that home.
Okay. Well, that makes me feel better.
I'm hoping that I'm in the house I'm currently living in for the rest of my life. So.
Good. Okay, that was my question.
You want to go, Trey?
Kylie, what have you not been able to accomplish during your time on the board that you would like to accomplish?
Well, one of my three items. So I really want to help bring in STEM, STEAM, project-based learning, CTE. We're working on it, but I feel like we keep having to deal with other issues, right? And so we only have so much time and space. So that's something that I would really like to see happen. It's very important to me. The next issue would be policies and procedures and standard operating procedures. And Chris and I actually talked about this not too long ago, that in order to bring in STEM and STEAM and CTE and project-based learning, we have to have a strong foundation. And in order to have a strong foundation, we have to have policy. And they have to be up to date and they have to work for our school. So I would like to, over my next term, if I get appointed, is to work on that. It's a massive project, but it's getting rid of the old and bringing in the new. So that's really big one for me.
Awesome. Mr. Davis, what do you bring to the board based on your background?
Well, I think one of the things that I bring the most is I do have kids that go to the school, but they're really, really young. I'm a coach and I'm also a lot younger and I hang out a lot with the students of this school. So I bring a completely different perspective of what's going on in the school than I think any of the other board members could provide. I mean, I have students that literally treat me as a friend, as well as someone they look up to. So I just think I bring a completely different perspective than the board has seen and watched.
I'll ask one. So we just had an election. Why did neither of you put your name on the ballot?
I currently didn't live in the zone long enough to put it at that point.
Fair enough.
And I didn't put in, as some of you know, as you all know very well, my daughter had some major health issues over the summer. And we had just returned from the hospital mid-August. And the election due date was September 12th. And we weren't sure where we were at with things. And so out of respect for the school and allowing more people to put their name in the hat, I chose to wait. We had an MRI 2 weeks ago, we're looking good, and so I'm feeling super comfortable being able to dedicate the amount of time that I have to dedicate previously.
Mr. Davis, in your opinion, why do you think school boards are necessary for the function of a school?
Well, from what I understand, it's what helps the checks and balances and everything run. You know, government in high school, you're taught about all the three different parts of the government. And I think there's three different parts of the school with the teaching, admin, and then school board. So you have like checks and balances everywhere to kind of help everything function and go smoothly.
Thank you. Okay. Yes.
Oh, I'm not.
I'll ask Mr. Davis, what can you add to this board that's lacking?
I don't know that the board is necessarily lacking anything. I can add myself and my personality and my insight. I am hard work ethic. I'm an owner of 3 businesses. I work a lot. I do have the time to put towards this. I make my own schedule, but that's what I would bring is a lot of hard work. I mean, I do know, I have read all of the school policies before the app went down. I don't know when that exactly was, but I went back to read them again. They were there. They wasn't there. And then I also know the state policies I've read and do understand that was on my resume. I've read all of the state policies from the school boards.
Yeah. Ms. Peters, I should ask you that same question.
Yes.
So, so in your opinion, and I'm going to ask a little bit differently, like why are school boards actually necessary?
School boards are necessary definitely for the checks and balances and the accountability. We have to make sure we have budgets. The budgets have to be accurate. Money needs to be there. It's the number one important thing. You have to hire, you're in charge of hiring a person to make that happen for the school. It's a huge piece of the board. You have to have policy, procedure, standard operating procedures in place in order for the school to run. It's all this huge systemic thing, right? Like it starts from the top and that strong leadership. And without that strong leadership, things can go awry. So school boards are imperative to make sure that the day-to-day is happening.
Thank you.
Good.
Okay. So, do I have a motion to appoint a trustee for Zone 4?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to propose that we nominate Kylie Peters as trustee for Zone 4.
Okay, so we have a motion to appoint Kylie Peters for trustee for Zone 4. Do I have a second?
Second?
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Ms. Peters, you are back on the board. Thank you, Sawyer, for your time and effort. Appreciate it. Your seat's still warm.
Okay, 4 years. Okay, item number 5, first reading of amended policy 2430 for the gifted and talented program.
Okay. that was-
So when I was speaking to Steve earlier this week about the gifted and talented, or last week, we realized that the plan that was presented reflected that our policy needed to be updated. So there was things that needed to be implemented in our policy. It's recording, so when it messes up, you know what happened.
I'm sorry, I didn't do it on purpose.
So it's just updated to reflect our 3-year plan and what's required of us.
Okay, so that's,
The powers that be, I apologize on more information.
Okay, so then what Pat did was strike out what doesn't need to be there, highlighted.
It was Steve,
Steve,
based
okay?
on Steve's recommendations, but yeah.
Okay. Did I break it?
okay, and I read through this too. Yes, there's 2 minutes here. I'm gonna go back to this. The only thing that confused me a little bit was the third one there, with the student transfer one.
It just means that we would look, I would, as registrar, I would be looking through the records for any indicators that they were labeled gifted and talented and found to be gifted and talented prior to coming to us. And then we make sure that we slide them into that program and take care of them and accommodate them.
Would we be required to retest them for gifted and talented? Because,
Test them? I don't know about that. I just know that in the registration right
so
now.
once a school determines a student's gifted and talented, then that transfers through to another school.
Yeah, I believe by law we need to.
Yeah.
Yeah, typically, it's, and as we heard earlier, the gifted and talented, there's, it's, we talked a lot about kind of exceptional students, which are kind of, both ends of the spectrum. And there's, as Ms. Lynch indicated, there's 5 different categories, right? You could, if you had, if you've got a really robust program and somebody transfers in, you could do your own testing to decide if they meet, Garden Valley's standard for gifted and talented. Because there's not necessarily a universal standard that says, well, if you get this grade on this test, then you're
It is pretty subjective, right?
yeah, I mean, you do have some standards that you use, but, there's, I mean, even as was indicated, in the policy or your existing policy, a student can refer themselves, parents can refer, teachers can refer, so there's a lot of different ways for someone to kind of get in the pipeline. And so then you look at that person and try to decide, some of the things are subjective, some may be, specific, but when you're looking at someone that's maybe artistic, there's not necessarily a test that you take to say, oh, this person's artistically gifted, so they're in. So you may do your own testing once they're in, but I think as Janelle's described, she's going to look through if somebody's transferring into the district, see if there's a marker in their student file that says they're a gifted student. And then you would likely automatically put them in your program, but I think you're always kind of assessing, and just making sure that they're keeping up and doing those things, so there's not.
That was the only thing that stood out to me. That makes sense.
But I think it's because since we have it in policy and we have different testing procedures or qualifications for the different aspects of gifted and talented, that we can test.
Right.
Because the other end of the spectrum is, what if somebody falls out of this? We've tested them, they're gifted and talented, and then they just fall out. They do not perform any longer. Doesn't mean that they're in the program forever. So I think with the transfer, because we have it in policy, we can test. Because the school that they come from might not be as rigorous as our school.
Yeah, in this particular circumstance, yeah, that makes sense too.
That was my understanding.
Yeah. Okay, so this is just our first reading.
That's our first reading.
I have a real quick question on that. If you go back to the packet on page 5,
Yeah.
Program considerations, student transfer policy, John, as a no. Will this complete that to a yes?
What's your question? Can you say it louder?
So on the,
On assignment policy, right?
yeah,
six?
number 7,
Student transition.
done,
policy.
question mark, it says no. Does this policy make
Is
this
that what this
yes,
policy is,
done
Michelle,
now?
do you know?
Because it's not confirmed yet, like that whole.
Okay.
We're in the process, so we can't necessarily check off with the state.
This hasn't
and say we're
been
done yet.
finalized.
So
But this
because
policy
is
will-
the state, what you're looking at this packet. Does that make
Num-
sense?
Number 6 gives us the right to test it,
Right.
the way I read it. We can evaluate them. Should have their records reviewed by the new team, which is the school's team.
And we'll have to create like a standard operating procedure for that.
Okay.
So this
Right.
policy covers 5 and 6.
Yes.
5, 6, and 7, based on how it's written. So those will turn to yeses when
Yeah.
this, if you guys were to accept this policy and it were finalized.
Right, and then we can create a standard operating procedure to how we want that to look when new students are transferring into the district.
So
Or
must
even
that then
within-
become a yes?
Right, these 3 would become yeses. if we
Once
approve
this is
policy.
approved.
No, but isn't this part of the policy? Because this is
No,
how
this is-
operate, this is the way we operate.
This is the checklist, right, to get into this program.
Yeah, this packet that you're looking at is what we submit to the state.
Yeah.
As part of our 3-year plan, so because it's not fully operational yet, we're telling them we don't have that quite done yet.
Right.
So we're in process, once it's completed, then we can tell them.
And it's
Yeah.
not complete because this hasn't been.
Look at final this. This one, yes.
1, 2, and 3 are basically 5, 6, and 7. That was added.
I got it.
The terminology is just changed to be appropriate for a policy.
Okay. Yeah, we don't need to go back, right?
No, it's the first reading, we
Yeah.
can't anyway.
Right.
Right. Okay. 3, 4, 5, 6. Item number 6. To discuss and possibly hire high school girls wrestling coach. Is there any discussion?
I understand we have a girls wrestling program here
We do,
and we need a coach.
we do,
Okay.
Do you have an applicant?
we do,
And we have an applicant.
we do.
Okay. So, Madam Chair, I move that we accept Pete Taverdi as girls wrestling coach for this current session.
This current
That
wrestling
that didn't read
session.
right.
Do I have a second? Okay.
Second?
All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, so there is a bit of an issue with item number 7 with the fall hires for 2024 coaches. It kind of slipped on the agenda by accident, like we're not ready to do that yet. That will be for the February meeting.
Right.
And for the, did I take your agenda? Sorry. And then we'll do, and we're going to do spring in the January meeting. So January 17th, we will hire spring coaches. February meeting, we'll be hiring for the fall coaches.
Yes. Can I expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, totally.
So what we did last, the board talked with Pat about how we handle hiring coaches, right? And we didn't feel it was fair that we were hiring coaches for the football season and they didn't get their answer till June, July. So what we said is that after the end of the season, we want to have a couple month period where we can evaluate. And Chandler has a whole rubric he uses to evaluate the coaches. And then we're also opening it up to the public to apply. If there's a coach somewhere else that wants to apply, and we want to give them equal consideration, right? So that 2-month window kind of falls at the end of the season, when the football season ended, I don't know when the last one was, November, something. So Chandler's doing his evaluations on volleyball and football right now, and then he's going to make his recommendations to the board, which will happen in the February meeting.
February.
But we also have to open it up to the public and let the public know.
Right, yeah. And Chandler's, so between, the
Chandler
board
Pat.
doesn't get involved in that, that's Pat and Chandler's job. So they're doing that evaluation right now, so that should, the baseball, what is it, baseball, track and field, and softball will be done at the January meeting, and then the football stuff will be done in February.
Correct.
Football, volleyball.
Because we implemented the policy after those seasons and we couldn't go. and
We're just trying to give
backtrack.
the coaches as much time as they can have to know that they're the selected coach.
But also introduce a new standard operating procedure
Right.
for hiring coaches.
So that's the reason for that. Thank you.
Great. Lots of stuff that worked.
Yeah.
So, okay, so apologies that got on there and we all missed it, so. Okay, item number 8, discuss and approve school closures for November 15th, 2023, half-day, low attendance, November 16th, 2023, November 20th, 2023, and November 21st, 2023, anticipated low attendance, December 4th, 2023, delayed start, winter road conditions.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve school closures for the dates and reasons listed and read.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye. Okay, old business. Item number 1, amend policy 1300, district policy, first reading. This is the one,
Yes.
yeah.
Just to point out, I think there was a lot of discussion about this, or some discussion around this. As with the gifted and talented program, and Principal Lynch explained, sometimes certain things are mandated. And we can discuss it as much as we want to. It's mandated. We have to make that part of policy. So do we require 3 or 4 readings for that, or can we do it at 1 reading if it's mandated? Sometimes the amendment that we have to make is a change of a word, or something is spelled incorrectly, or the wording is maybe not clear. When we make those changes, the policy is not going to change. But do we need 2 or 3 readings for that? And it just makes, as a board member, you just heard, it takes,
Months.
for me, 5 to 10 hours a week just to be on the board. But now this policy comes up again, and now there's a change. It just increases that time. So what we're saying is, to be more effective, can we do this? In the summer, we had an issue where the legislature passed something at the end of their session. We only got the policy here towards the end of summer. School began, and while school was in session, we discussed the policy that was mandated for us to implement at the beginning of the school year, but we only got it then. But then we had to, as per policy 1300, we had to have 2 or 3 readings on that, and that is what we're trying to do. Just become a little bit more streamlined, and it's got nothing to do with pulling the wool over the public's eyes. So that is why we're changing the policy.
Yes. And I've read it, I've already
Yep.
reviewed the changes.
Yeah, and this is not our first reading. right?
No, this is our second reading.
Yeah, we've already done this.
We already did it in the last special meeting.
Yeah, it wasn't a regular meeting, it was that special meeting we had. Oh my God.
I was there.
Sorry,
It
but,
was a discussion, it wasn't a first reading. The last discussion.
but it was all highlighted on a piece of paper,
I know, I'm just letting you guys know that it wasn't first reading.
so that's
Based
not a
on record.
reading.
It wasn't, you guys didn't call it. Never did a debate and everything.
So it's just a
So-
discussion.
It was just a discussion.
Okay. Okay.
But this will be better. organized.
So we
And
need,
be better organized moving forward.
Yes.
Okay, that's all that matters.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so before we adjourn, I I wanted to bring up 2 points. Tonight is Morris's last night on the board. He has served on the board for 8 years. And I want to thank you for your time and your service. And then, on another note, we lost a very special teacher on Monday evening, and I just want to take a moment to appreciate and thank him for everything that he did for our students. He was a man of honor and kindness and love and loyalty, and he will be deeply missed and touched many lives here at Garden Valley School District. So I just wanted to take a moment and recognize that. Okay, meeting's adjourned.
If you do take any of these,
I know. I was trying to float her in. You guys were really long.